This is episode 22 of the Feed Your Soul with Kim podcast. Today we talk about the Holiday Trifecta, which is really the time of year between October 1 and December 31. Get inspired to make a different and productive entrance into the Holiday Trifecta. Learn what the Holiday Trifecta is and why you should care about it. How does the Holiday Trifecta influence overeating, emotional eating, and over-dieting? And come away with a doable that will get you out of falling into that Holiday Trifecta. Let's get started. Welcome to the Feed Your Soul with Kim podcast. I'm Kim McLaughlin, your host. I'm a psychotherapist, speaker, inspirational coach, best-selling author, and podcaster. I help people when they're feeling frustrated and overwhelmed and overloaded, and it shows up in overeating and over-dieting, and they help them find peace with food and peace in their lives. And today, what we're talking about, when we talk about peace with food and peace with your life, we're talking about the Holiday Trifecta. This is a name to what I put to the 3 months of holiday time, which is October 1 to December the 31st. What I realized as I was working with people on emotional eating and overeating is that there's this really long period of overeating that we can get caught up in, and it's really not a day. It's not the holiday. It's not Halloween. It's not Thanksgiving Day, and it's not Christmas Day. It is really this 3-month season that really impacts people and impacts their lives. It's interesting because right now we're at the beginning of October, and I have noticed people already talking about buying Halloween candy, eating all the Halloween candy, and wanting to buy more Halloween candy. And we're not at Halloween yet. It's really a time during these 3 months of overindulgence, of letting loose, and of overeating. And it can be a time of binge eating and really extreme overeating. What we can tend to do is eat all of those foods that we have not allowed ourselves to have all year long. And we really go in full force over this 3-month period and eat everything in sight. There begins to be this buildup of overeating, then feeling guilty and feeling shame, and then restricting when it comes to January 1. And I'm going to encourage you to start looking at this time of year differently and really consider that we're going from October 1st to January 1st as really this season of overeating rather than days of overeating. And I'm going to go into this time period with you, focusing on not setting you up to think that you have to restrict when it comes to January 1, and that you don't have to diet, but that food is really in its proper place as nourishment, even over this holiday time. And what I'm not saying by that is I'm not saying that you won't overeat or that you can't overeat or that you shouldn't overeat. I'm just saying, let's look at food in a different way. I think it's perfectly acceptable to overeat on Halloween. Have more candy than you thought you would normally have. On Thanksgiving Day, eat a larger meal than you're used to. On Christmas Day, eat more than you normally do, or eat a few more sweets than you normally do. What the problem is not those days. The problem is this Holiday Trifecta season. And when we begin to eat during the season, that's when we begin to feel upset about ourselves. And I think when you look at people kind of normal eaters, they overeat sometimes at Halloween. They eat or overeat at Thanksgiving or Christmas. I remember I used to work with a nutritionist, and I was working with her over Thanksgiving time, and she was showing me some supplements she was going to have on Thanksgiving Day because she planned to overeat. And I was shocked that she was a dietitian and that she was planning on overeating. And what she was doing with these supplements was finding a way to not have her tummy get upset on that one day. And she said that they make these foods that they normally don't make. She really enjoys them on the holiday, and then she's done. But what she didn't like was having her stomach get upset. I found that fascinating because I didn't think anybody who is a dietitian would overeat. And I just thought this was so enlightening about what other people do who don't compulsively overeat or binge eat throughout the year. These holidays in and of themselves are not bad, and they're not something to be avoided, and they're not something to be afraid of. I remember when I was in certain weight loss programs, the holiday time was really tough because we talked a lot about how to restrict, about how to not eat the things that we really wanted to eat and to avoid them or to make them really low calorie, which often translated into low or no taste. I really didn't like that way of eating, and it really, to me, resonated with that diet culture, that diet idea of we can't eat what we really want. We have to eat either less or none of the items or make them very low fat, low calorie, low taste kind of ways. What we tend to do is once we overeat at this holiday trifecta time is we then say, well, come January 1, I'm going to diet. And we'll allow ourselves to overeat. And what I think is interesting is I think the idea when we say that we're going to overeat right now, but we're going to diet and check in or check ourselves when it comes to January 1, we think, well, we're just going to eat one meal, a big one meal, like the big Thanksgiving meal or the big Christmas meal, and that then we diet or we go back to the other kind of eating come January 1. What the problem is that we have 3 months, which is 90 days, and it ends up being 90 days, close to 90 days of lots of eating in a way that doesn't normally fit for us. And there are the parties, there's the candy at work, there's the candy from the kids, there are the things that we cook, that we make that special during the year, that we really want, and we eat it as we cook it, we eat it after we cook it, we give it away, we get some gifts ourselves of food. So there's really lots of opportunities for eating more than just on that one holiday day or that one holiday meal. I think it can be useful to start imagining and wondering and thinking about what happens when we allow ourselves to overeat over this holiday trifecta period, this October 1 to December 1 period. And what happens to us is that partly we become more and more disconnected from ourselves. We're tending to be more mindless and disconnected from our bodies and what our bodies really want and need. Our bodies also feel bad. Physically, we have upset stomachs, bloating, and weight gain. Remember what I said about that nutritionist? She talked about knowing that she was going to overeat and overeat on foods that actually don't resonate or fit well with her body, and that she was going to account for that by having these enzymes and these pills that she was going to take in order to not have an upset stomach. So she knew that she was going to feel bad, but she was going to find a way to counteract it. Well, she doesn't normally overeat. That's just literally one meal that she overeats and eats food differently. And she's trying to account for it so that she doesn't end up having her stomach feel upset. I have no judgment about whether that's bad or good for her, but it's really an interesting idea about what we go through in order to eat foods that don't feel good or to overeat. Another thing that happens when we allow ourselves to overeat at holiday time is we start to dislike ourselves and feel bad about ourselves, even to the point of talking about hating ourselves. I have a lot of people who talk about how much they hate themselves after they overeat, and then also will say they can't stop overeating. So there's this ongoing self-hatred that comes into play that's really not beneficial or helpful. We talk often about the 6 core components to feed your soul: physical, emotional, mental, lifestyle, mindfulness, and self-love. when we're feeling hatred towards ourselves, that is a lack of self-love. And we're digging ourselves in a deeper hole by allowing ourselves to go in that direction of feeling hatred towards ourselves. Another thing that happens when we allow ourselves to overeat over this holiday trifecta time is we suffer emotionally. We feel angry, frustrated, and overwhelmed. Remember, all those reasons why we eat food to stop the emotions really means the emotions come back in greater force. So if over this 3-month period you're overeating to put those feelings to rest, the overwhelm, the anxiety, the boredom, the loneliness, when you use food to put those to rest, it really doesn't put them to rest long term, because those emotions come back in greater force later on, and then you still have them to deal with. Another thing that happens when we allow ourselves to overeat over this trifecta time is that we think about food often, and that can tend to bother us, that we're thinking about it so much. And it becomes this constant obsession about what food's around, what food can I have. I've had that a lot when I used to work in offices, because people would every day bring in different sweet things, or the vendors would bring in candy, and it was all over the place. It was hard to say no to it, because I had just started allowing myself to eat these foods that didn't feel good for me, and I would obsess about it, and I wouldn't know what to do about that obsession. These problems and this suffering is real, and I want to make us more conscious over this holiday trifecta period that this can happen. And when we know that it can happen, we can make some different decisions. What I want for you is, over this holiday trifecta period, is to experience peace with food. It means you have to be more mindful. It means you have to be engaged differently in your life, but it's really doable. And what I'm going to do over this holiday time is I'm going to spend time prior to and during each holiday talking about what you can do, because when we want to have peace with food over this holiday time, it's about what happens at work. It's about what happens with our families. It's about what happens in our relationships with our kids, with our routine, with areas that we feel uncomfortable. Also, it comes from old habits and patterns of behavior. We tend to have these patterns of behavior that we do over the holidays that we don't check in with ourselves about and notice whether they work for us anymore. I've had some time to think more about this holiday trifecta period since I've been looking at it over these years that I've been focused on intuitive eating. And what I realize is that there's a lot of opportunity to become unconscious or mindless over the time period if I fall into habits of what I always do. One of the things I would always do is I would take candy that when my daughter went to go do her trick-or-treating, I would sneak candy. And I would just sneak it and eat it because I wanted to. And what I've come to find out is that I don't sneak food. I can have it if I want it, and I wonder if I really want it. And I also deal with any feelings going on that are maybe leading me to have that kind of food over other kinds of food. The other thing I've noticed, and we'll talk about this more as we get closer to Thanksgiving and Christmas, is I would bake, and I would bake with the idea that I would be giving away the things that I would bake. And truthfully, a lot of the times I would bake it for myself because I really wanted it, and I would eat quite a bit of it even before I gave it away. And if I didn't give all of it away, I would eat more of it. And I've really rethought that idea about, do I really want to make that much food to give away to people? And I think of the idea, I call it loving each other to death, like this over giving of food. And I've reimagined it in my mind and have thought more about, do I really want to do that? And Do I really want to make that much food? And am I honestly doing it for myself? And if I want it for myself, then I can make a serving and I can have it. Or if I'm pretending to make it for everybody else, but it's really for me, I need to be honest with myself about it and be more authentic and truthful about what's going on. As we enter into this trifecta period, I want to start giving you ideas about what it looks like, but then also what in the heck are we going to do about it? Because if we don't have action, if we don't have things to do based on our insight, there's really no peace with food. Hi everyone, this is Kim, and my book is out. Feed Your Soul, Nourish Your Life, a 6-step system to peace with food is live. I recommend you get it. It has all my 6 components of feeding your soul, as well as my own story. Pick it up now. You can find it on my website at feedyoursoulunlimited.com. Thanks. So I got some ideas for you based on what I do, and as I said, I'll give more of these ideas out as we have future podcasts around this holiday period. One of the things I like to do is take a deep breath. It doesn't cost anything. It's really easy to do, and we do it all the time. We just don't pay attention to it. A deep breath brings calm and peace. And what we know is that we cannot be anxious and calm at the same time. So as you breathe in, you can breathe in this sense of peace and calm, and that releases the anxiety. This breath makes you reconnected to yourself and to what's going on with you. I like to do it as I'm walking. I'll take a deep breath. As I'm sitting here, actually right now, I'm taking a deep breath. And also I'm dropping my shoulders because I'm getting a little tense as I'm talking about all of this. And this reconnects me back with my body. But taking a deep breath is easy and simple. One of the ways to do it is to set a timer and put a timer on where once every 15 minutes, the timer goes off, you take a deep breath, reconnect with your body, and then go back to what you're doing. But focusing on the breath is one great suggestion to start handling this holiday season differently. The next one is to notice your body signals about hunger and fullness. These are key ingredients. It gets us back in touch with that physical component about what's going on. When we're eating constantly over this holiday, it's not about hunger. It's not about physical hunger, which when we talked before in our podcast about the 4 hungers, the hunger we want to have drive us is physical hunger. Does that mean throughout this whole holiday period that you're only going to respond to physical hunger? Absolutely not. There's going to be times where mouth hunger is going to be there and you're going to go, wow, that sounds really good. That tastes really good. I really want it and I'm not really hungry. That's okay. And let's just notice it and call it as mouth hunger and enjoy it and move on. When we're conscious that it's a response from mouth hunger, then we're not going to do it all the time because we're going to really enjoy it. And then we're going to move on to what we have to do next. If you haven't been able to figure out how to notice your hungry and full response, the top tips to end emotional eating, which are in the show notes, they're a freebie that I give out that really does walk you through how to look closer at whether you're hungry and whether you're full. And that is a key ingredient for this holiday season. So please pick that up and sign up for it. A third way that we can get connected or reconnected with ourselves over this holiday is to get support. And I'm not talking about that being the next diet or whatever they're promoting on Yahoo as the favorite way to lose weight at this point in time. But I'm talking about somebody who can help you get connected with peace within yourself, self-love, mindfulness, peace with food, and a person who is authentic and truthful and will really listen to you about your struggles and really just empathize with where you're at rather than having to need to fix it. Another place that I think of when we're looking at getting support, the Feed Your Soul community is a great place to get involved, especially over this holiday trifecta period on Facebook, and it's Feed Your Soul Community. Once again, there's a link in the show notes to it. But I post there most every day's ideas, things to do, questions. There's other people in there that are walking the same path that you are to feeding their soul and putting food in its proper place as nourishment. They can help you out, and I can help you out in that group. As always, we have a doable at the end of our podcast. And today I want you to think about this holiday trifecta period and what has been your experience with this time and these 3 months. Really think about, how do I manage October 1 to December 1? And am I looking to do it differently this time? Identify the areas where you struggle, where maybe food shows up more than you'd like it to, or where you feel really afraid. Sometimes it's about experiences with other people, maybe a holiday party or a family gathering or some events that feel uncomfortable that you might want to run away from or feel scared to go to. And start journaling what happens during this time and what has been your experience in the past. What's been your experience with Thanksgiving? What's been your experience with Halloween? What's been your experience with Christmas? And then as you write that, think about whether that's going to work for you this year. Think about if you want to handle it differently and join with us on a whole new path. I'm looking to enter this holiday trifecta with everybody and be encouraging about how to travel down this road with peace with food, how to handle the holidays different. What I know from experience, my own personal experience, and from people that I work with, is that there's a different way to live over this holiday period. You don't have to feel overwhelmed, overloaded, overeating, and just say, I give up. Because that's a lot of what happens for people is as this holiday trifecta time goes on, we just throw up our hands and go, what the heck? I'm just going to overeat. I'll deal with it later. I don't care. And then you come out of this holiday weighing more than you want to, feeling horrible in your body and feeling horrible emotionally with yourself and feeling that self-loathing that's really not necessary. So I encourage you to stick with us every week on this podcast. Come back and listen. I have lots of tips and tricks, ways to understand this holiday in a whole different way. I promise you there is peace with food and there is peace in your life this holiday season. This is Kim McLaughlin with Feed Your Soul with Kim podcast. I look forward to talking to you next week, everyone. Bye-bye. Thank you for joining us on the Feed Your Soul with Kim podcast. We come to you every Monday with fresh new ideas to help you end emotional eating and put food in its proper place as nourishment. Please be sure to subscribe to this podcast and review it and let us know what you think. Thank you for joining us.